My entire world was shattered on New Year's Eve when I returned early from a girls' trip I had taken with some friends. I walked into my bedroom to find my mom having you-know-what with my husband. Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, I'm going to go over a story titled, I Ruined My Mom's Life and Reputation. And guys, hands down, this is the craziest, most screwed up story I have yet to cover, not only in this channel, but also my other channel, Strong Successful Male. It takes the cake. It is the most absolutely ridiculous, absurd, daytime TV type of scenario you're ever going to hear. This is all about a woman. She's been with her husband for 20 years. She's in her early 40s, 40 years old. And one day she came back from a work trip or something like that early to find her husband in bed with her mother, who's like 60 years old. And one thing leads to another, to her finding out not only that, but they've been having an affair for 20 years. Her husband and her mom. And also, she has a whole bunch of younger siblings, and it turns out, guess what? She has to question whether her father or her husband is the father of her younger brothers. And we will find out more about that as I get into the story. So it absolutely screwed up. So for those of you that like the crazy stories, this is for you. And again, to show you where you can truth is stranger than fiction, Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0 world. So starting off, because this is a long one, my parents and dad and mom have been married for 43 years. I have 6 siblings. Now, she lists all the siblings' ages and genders, but I'm not going to get into it, but she has some younger siblings here. I've been with my husband since we were 15. I got pregnant at 17, and we moved in with my parents. I gave birth to my now daughter, my now 22-year-old daughter. We got married at 18 shortly after. My dad's father passed away shortly after our wedding and left his ranch-style house to my father. My grandparents built a house next door to my parents when they retired. My parents decided to let us live in this house and told us this would be my inheritance. My husband and I had no issues with this. We went on to have 3 kids, and I'm currently 7 months pregnant with my last child, a boy, due in April. I thought I had a good marriage. Again, all these stories start off this way. We were intimate more than twice a week. We went on date nights, we bought each other gifts, and we didn't fight. My entire world was shattered on New Year's Eve when I returned early from a girls' trip I had taken with some friends. I walked into my bedroom to find my mom having you-know-what with my husband. My mom screamed at me to get out of their bedroom, which really shook me up even more. Her mom's doing her husband, and she's yelling at her. Unfortunately, my oldest daughter was also home in her bedroom across the house getting ready for a party. She ran out and witnessed my all but a bedsheet naked mom run out of our house next door to her house and slammed the door. How'd the girl not hear this going on? My daughter was devastated and went to my sister's house. I asked her not to say anything until I first talked to my husband. I asked him for the truth. He told me that my mom seduced him when we were 18 and living in their house. They've been having unprotected you-know-what at least once a week, once a month for longer than we were married. 20 years he's been nailing her mom. What a piece of garbage. Both of them. I ran the math and was horrified because the timeline meant my twin brothers and youngest brother could be, wait for it, my husbands. It's bad enough that he's hooking up with her, but then having unprotected? You gotta be kidding me. I immediately called my dad and told him to come to my house without my mom. I made my husband confess, and my dad was devastated. He and my mom were high school sweethearts too. Needless to say, we could hear my mother screaming from her house when he confronted her. I then told my older sister, and she and I decided to throw a party for the whole extended family, and we invited my ex's family as well. Not exactly a time for a party here, but okay. At the party, I had my 22-year-old daughter take all the kids to our basement and put on a movie, leaving only the adult children and siblings, and I told them exactly what they'd been doing. Can you imagine that conversation? Most of the family is on my side, except my 3 youngest siblings. The 38-year-old female sister, the ex's entire family. They all say I'm a a-hole for dropping this publicly. Word got out, my mom's best friend, who is on leadership at mom's church, my childhood church, called me to verify. My mom has since been let go as the children's pastor there, and she claims I've essentially ruined her reputation and life. Her mother, who's been hooking up with her husband for 20 years and having his babies, is a pastor, a children's pastor at their church. Oh my God, talk about hypocritical. And she's blaming her for ruining her reputation in life. She's ruined her reputation in life. Unbelievable, the gaslighting and twisting things around to make, unbelievable. No accountability. My dad kicked her out, and now she's living with my 38-year-old sister. And lastly, my dad insisted on a DNA test for the 3 youngest boys before he considered anything to do with their marriage. The twins are my husband's biological children. Holy crap. I've since kicked him out, and he's living with his parents. So all along, the younger brothers that she thought were younger brothers were actually her husband's kids. Like I said, this is like Jerry Springer or Maury Povich shit. My father and I are discussing me moving into his much larger house and him selling my grandfather's house and him giving me the money to buy a new house somewhere else to get rid of the memories. My husband is appalled and furious. I proved he actually is about to have 7 kids instead of 5, and that I'm going to be taking half his business away from him. My husband started his own HVAC company a few years back, and for the first 5 years, I helped him get it set up, ran the office completely, and took time away from my teaching career to help him get this established. In my state, all marital assets, including businesses, are split 50-50. Since the house was still my father's name, my husband will get no money from the sale. Neither will my mother, since inherited assets are not subject to be split in divorces. My mother is also likely to get no alimony, as our state is a no-fault divorce state. Well, there you go. So there's some justice here. Good. She should get half his business, considering he's the one that did all this. There are going to be some guys that are going to disagree with me here, but I try to be fair and equal here. I'm now over a month removed, still extremely bitter and angry at my mother, especially at her hypocrisy of calling me a WHORE and shaming my family when she's done much worse. I also despise my ex with everything within me now, as he was effing both my mom and me, in some instances coming to our bed minutes later. Oh, he enjoyed that, you know it. He got my mother pregnant less than a week after getting me pregnant, and while I thought it was so cute and fun that I shared a pregnancy experience with my mom, she was carrying my children half-siblings. He has broken all trust I had in men and being faithful. I've already procured a good lawyer from the firm that helped us in financial matters for both me and my dad is helping pay for it. My twin brothers, one of my sisters, and my entire ex's family have gone no contact with me and my minor children, and my children have essentially lost all their grandparents but my dad, 2 uncles and an aunt on my side, and my husband's 3 brothers due to this mess. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot possibly keep up. I read this twice before I'm doing this now, and I can't keep up with all the cousins and uncles and all that stuff. This is... I wasn't kidding when I told you this is the craziest story I've ever done. I've also developed ulcers and digestive issues because of this, so I'm visiting the doctor soon. I'll be in therapy since the first week of January. She is going to be in therapy for the rest of her life after all this. I've offered this for my 2 adult children if they need family therapy with all of us, but they're doing individual therapy right now. Well, that therapist is going to make a fortune off this family. My 14-year-old knows that we are getting divorced and why, and she's so angry at her dad that I struggle sending her to his house on the weekends. I feel like she's old enough to make a decision on that, but I don't want to damage her relationship with her dad. I've told all my kids it's okay to love their dad, even if he hurt me, but the oldest 2 have cut him off 100%. I won't tell my youngest 2 until they're teens why we got divorced, and everyone else has agreed to not spill anything until they're old enough to understand. I can't believe she's actually saying, even though he hurt her, did all that, she's not going to damage the relationship with him. That's amazing. Although maybe she's saying this to be nice in the story, but in reality, all bets are off. I don't know. As for how I had no idea this affair was going on, my husband confirmed to me that they were having you-know-what at my mom's offices at church, in their cars, at a motel, and when we built the business, they started having it routinely in his office. Once I went back to teaching, they also had it in our houses too, where my father would go away on business trips or I'd be out of town. Unbelievable. Everywhere. Even at church, I might add. And she's mad because she lost her position as a children's pastor. It was pure happenstance that I came home a day early from a trip because I was uncomfortable being nearly 7 months pregnant and just wanted my own bed. For me to find out. Knowing they'd be carrying on this full-blown affair still, if I hadn't caught them, is what is still upset about. The fact that the grandmother and father of my children care so little about destroying our family is what I can't get past. No one can blame you in the least. And she needs to kick her mom's ass, I might add, before she cuts all contact with her. What's the hardest for me is that my own mother would do this to me and would continue to do this for all these years, not caring when it would all blow up in her face, and she'd be destroying her entire family. Also, to add insult to injury, my husband confirmed in one of our mediated conversations the affair started when I apparently made him angry. He didn't tell me and instead vented to my mom when they were alone. She comforted him and said they had you-know-what. He loved it and they pursued after that. He said he would have divorced me, but he knew he'd get cut from her, and she was so much better at SCX than me. Insult to injury. So he stuck it out with me. He told me I was a placeholder. Of all the betrayal and low blows, that statement is what keeps me up at night. She needs to get the hell away from these assholes. Now we got a bunch of updates here as to what happens and so forth, because it's is equally as interesting. One update, she says, I tried hard to go the route of a mediated divorce, but my ex told me yesterday through his lawyers that he doesn't believe that the baby I'm carrying is his, and he wants a DNA test as soon as he's born because he doesn't want to support a child that isn't his. This guy's accusing her of cheating. This is usually how it works, where cheaters are always accusing other people of cheating because that's what they do, and that's their perception of the world. He also believes I routinely cheated on him through our marriage and that I knew about his ongoing affair and used it as my excuse to have my own affairs. None of this is true, but I kind of wish it was because it would make the divorce easier. My lawyer basically told me to get ready for a long, drawn-out, brutal contested divorce and that my ex is likely going to try every underhanded tactic in the book to make my life even more miserable. Yeah, assuming that she's telling the truth here and, she's hasn't done any cheating or anything like that. Isn't that amazing? He's the a-hole here, and yet he's doing this to her. Next update, she says, I had a phone conversation with my aunt today, my egg donor's sister, and that's funny. And she told me there is a family history of cheating in our family on the side of the family. My grandma cheated on my grandpa for years, but they reconciled. My aunt herself had multiple emotional affairs, but is still married to my uncle. She tried blaming genetics on my mom's affair. I laughed out loud at the absurdity of that in an attempt to justify her affair, and my aunt is now mad at me for not hearing my egg donor out and her explanations for cheating. Well, because obviously it's not a genetic thing, but it's just simply that everybody knows everybody else does it, so they figure, hey, that's how it is, so it's okay. She says, my dad and lawyer both say I should hear her out, so I'm considering doing it right before we meet in early March to establish custody. I should mention that I asked my aunt if my mama inherited the horror gene. Which child did she pass it on to, and how did grandma manage to pass it on to both her daughters? So that's probably why she's mad in retrospect. I've honestly lost all sympathy for cheaters after this. I don't blame her. Next update. A lot of updates in this crazy tale. She says, my ex accused me of also being unfaithful because he also wants a DNA test when our son is born. My aunt exposed multiple affairs in which my egg donor's side of the family and tried to claim it's genetic and hereditary. My dad and the lawyers encouraged us to meet and my egg donor for evidence and for closure. And this update deals with the answers we were given about her choices when we did meet. She says, I met with my egg donor, dad, and our lawyers last evening. Essentially, my egg donor said she knew it was wrong but enjoyed the attention. The SCX was great and she enjoyed the thrill of it. She kept sleeping with my dad because she enjoyed their financial stability and carefree life and wanted to stay married. She purposely slept with him after each S-word encounter with my ex to endure that if she got pregnant, she could pass the child off. She also admitted to enjoying the knowledge that my ex enjoyed SCX with her more than me. And she's referring, obviously, the egg donor as her mother. She then said that she is moving in with my ex to his new place and she invited the boys to live with them. The twins have visited once since the affair went public and told her that they don't like my ex and refuse to treat him like he's their father. Again, like I said, daytime TV stuff. This is her mom, for God's sakes. She said eventually they'll come around once she's married to my ex and that she'll have a family back. I laughed out loud and told her she was delusional and needed psychiatric help. Then I told her I'd be taking out an order of protection against her so she'd have no access to my minor children. Do not allow your kids anywhere near your mother, or the egg donor as you call her. She called me jealous and ungrateful cow for not appreciating that she didn't abort me and let me live. Oh my God. She said I should be happy that they didn't kick me out when I came home knocked up. She even had the nerve to say I should be thankful she kept my husband happy when I couldn't, so he didn't divorce me and leave me a broken and damaged good single mom. I've heard so many stories about mothers and daughters fighting, having turmoil and all that. There's different stereotypes that definitely go on, but this is just pure venom. It's unbelievable. She then told my dad she suffered from postpartum depression after my birth, and my dad ignored it and made her feel alone, so she felt justified in hating me and to have affairs. Okay, so it's not my fault, it's your fault that I had affairs and did all that, and hooked up with our daughter's husband. She admitted to having multiple affairs for 6 months after I was born until New Year's Eve, and said she'd been doing it if I hadn't ruined everything. So my 38-year-old sister and my 34-year-old sister may not be my dad's either. Anybody watching this thinking about getting married, you might want to reconsider that. My dad is even more heartbroken and angry, but we did have both our lawyers present and we got it on record. My dad has already reached out to my siblings, but to nobody's surprise, I guess my 30-year-old sister already knew it was a possibility because my mom told her about both affairs when the twins were born, and she knew they might not be my dad's and kept it from us. My dad is devastated by the fact that, by that even more than losing his relationship with my mom. I'm not sure their relationship will ever recover. Of course it's not going to recover. I generally have no clue what is wrong with my sister. My 34-year-old sister, because she was previously talking about the 38-year-old sister, my 34-year-old sister doesn't want a paternity test and said our dad will always be her dad. Well, that's nice of her, but if the dad wants to know, he wants to know. My dad is fine with that. Okay. I sent a message to my ex through my lawyer and said I'll be filing an order of protection tomorrow so that my kids won't have to go to my ex's house if my mother is there. Neither one has ever attempted to find new housing either, so I guess she's planning to move into my ex-in-law's house. I really don't want my kids around that mess. He has yet to respond, but at this point, I really don't care what he wants. And a couple more little updates, and we're all done here in this crazy story. She says, P.S. My family knows about the social media posts, as do the lawyers, but my ex and egg donor, her mother, have zero chance of a good outcome in the divorce, so I'm going to be petty and enjoy their anger about being exposed, so I'm leaving it up. They can stew in their filth and know that not only does our town think they're terrible, so does the world. I'm against people putting their dirty laundry on social media. I don't care what the situation is. And I have permission from my youngest sister to share what happened last night. I really don't care what my 30-year-old female sister thinks. And she says, apparently there were more affairs. My mom blames my dad for her pregnancies, blah, 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 and she hates me because of that. It's just an update to what was there. But anyhow, guys, there you go. There were no updates beyond this, but we can all assume that pretty much she won the divorce, but it's one giant, completely screwed up situation. So, like I said in the beginning, I wasn't kidding that this is the most screwed up, messed up story I've ever covered, and probably will cover for a very long time. Truth is stranger than fiction. So for those of you that think about wanting to get married one day, I would spend a lot of time, really, a lot of time with your girl. Or in case, if you're a woman watching this, your guy, getting to know what he or she like for a long time, seeing them through thick and thin, what they're like, every situation that comes to them, and also what their family is like. Not that I encourage marriage in today's world, given how things are, but if you're going to do it anyway, which a lot of guys do, years and years and years, you got to be with them to see what they're really like. And then live with them as a final test. And even then they can put up an act. But especially see what the family's like, the dynamic there. Because look at this screwed up family. Unbelievable. So, alright guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. If you come across an even crazier story, I'd like to hear about it. Send me a link. I'll definitely cover it in a future video. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.